We are here at the Pasadena Red, White, and Blues Jazz Festival. With us headlining Saturday nights, Stanley Clarke with our Brian Bromberg. Hi, Stanley.
Hey, what's up?
Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
You know Brian?
I know this guy, yeah.
It's a long time.
We've recruited him.
That's right.
I've been drafted.
He has other skills.
He's a better bass player.
Well, let's find out. Let's find out.
Yeah, you haven't heard me how bad I am in interview.
We were just talking, Brian, about Stanley's new website.
Yes, beautiful.
Some
by
cool
the way.
stuff
yeah,
going
the
on.
front page is killing me.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah,
Very powerful.
actually, my daughter had a lot to do with that. She was saying that my other website, which used to open it up, and it was all red.
Right.
She said she thought she was opening up a site in Red China or something else.
Or an Italian restaurant.
Yeah,
Red
yeah,
China,
right. So, you know, so we changed it. It's nice.
It's really powerful with the white background and you just popping out. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really, it's a great statement in the music. It's very, very cool. You know, it's funny, you know, obviously I'm a bass player, been a fan forever. You know, one of the things about you that was always so, for me, what was so incredible is just the uniqueness and the sound and style that you have when you play acoustic bass. And I know who I listened to growing up that helped shape me to do what I do, but who did you listen to? Who were you exposed to? Obviously from Philly back east, a different vibe. I grew up in the West, but who did you listen to that got you inspired into it? And how did you, or when did you start noticing that your own sound and style started coming out?
It was 3 bass players, you know. One, Ron Carter. I think just for basic walking utility work on the bass. You know, Ron was like the quintessential jazz bassist for me, because to me, you know, Paul Chambers and a few others, Sam Jones, a few others, all culminated in Ron Carter. And so Ron was one, then Scott LaFaro was another one.
Did you ever get a chance to see Scotty play live?
No, I never saw Scotty play live. And then, but I did see Richard Davis. And I liked Richard Davis because he was just completely off the hook.
Yeah.
And he had a really interesting technique. He was actually a very good classical bass player. When Stravinsky used to come in town, he used to ask for Richard Davis to play.
How cool is that?
And I was very lucky to, that I subbed for Richard. Me and Chick used to sub for Richard Davis and Roland Hanna with the Thad Jones and Mel Lewis bands on Monday nights. So we'd go in every now and then, and that was always exciting because you just had charts, numbers thrown at you. Number 14, 1, 2.
Yeah, bam, you're on it. That's great.
And actually, one time it turned out to be, it was a joke that turned out to be really reality. One time I couldn't make a Joe Henderson gig, and I called Richard Davis. I said, Richard, could you come and sub for me? I was laughing, you know. He said, sure. And he went and subbed. And then I went back to play with Joe, and Joe said, what are you doing here? We want the other guy.
Yeah, right. Where's the other guy? That's great. Well, you know, it's, you know, obviously Ron Carter and you know, the guys you mentioned were, you know, from Paul Chambers, of course, Sam Jones, all these guys were so great at the fundamental, just, you know, playing the bass. But the thing is, which, you know, obviously you did great, but you developed such an amazing identity and solo vibe and sound and style that no one sounded like you before or after. And it was just, I was curious as to how that evolved to have such an identity, because you have such an identifiable sound. And, you know, Scotty was ridiculous to me. He was so far ahead of his time.
Exactly.
But I was just curious as to where, you know, when you started blowing and started soloing, where did that come from?
Well, you know, I have a view about uniqueness. I think that people that are unique, if you trace back, you have to have a little bit of courage in whatever field you're in to be unique, because it's easy to copy someone and be, I mean, like, you know, like for instance, I know, you know, sometimes people say, you know, when they're listening to the radio, particularly jazz radio, you know, you hear like the saxophone is kind of the dominant instrument.
Right.
And a lot of these guys sound very similar. At
Yeah,
one
you can't
point,
even
a couple
separate
years
them,
ago,
you couldn't tell who was who.
Dave Kosh from Kenny G,
Yeah,
from
separate,
Gerald
same.
Albright,
Right.
and there are a lot of other guys that follow along. It's
Right.
a very easy thing to do, which is to copy something that's proven.
Right.
It's very easy, but to go against the grain takes a little bit of either courage or craziness. And for me,
probably both.
I just was never really interested in playing like anybody, but of course, because like I mentioned, I listened to Ron Carter, I listened to who I listened to. Those influences, certain things that you do, they just naturally become a part of you because they're part of your building blocks
Sure.
for learning, you know. But then the other thing too is, you know, along with that craziness or courage or whatever you want to call it, you know, if you continue to practice and develop mentally as a musician, something's crazy. It's totally out of her mind. Maybe they're done. You know, yeah. Just, but you know, if you keep, you just keep developing. That's been the biggest thing for me is just continually developing and not just as a bass player. You know, thinking like something else. I mean, you know, sometimes I'm playing the bass and I'll be playing something in the solo area and I'll realize, wow, this is something I heard Segovia play, or this is something I heard Miles Davis play, or this is something I heard James Brown sing, or this is something I don't discriminate against any musical lick or genre.
You can't, because great is great.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what it is.
I'll play anything on the acoustic bass, and I'm having more fun with the acoustic bass now than I ever did before. You know.
Why do you think that is?
I think because, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know. I just think it's the instrument for me. It's a little more wide open. I know, like, a lot of bass players wouldn't think that.
Should we try?
Well, that's at least slower.
Well, at least it's better. Thanks, Stanley.
I know a lot of bass players, probably more electric bass players, would think, no, you have more possibilities with the electric bass because it's louder and more knobs and things. For some reason, for me, I just think that there's just much more you can do with the acoustic bass. You know, particularly if you have a good acoustic bass. You have to have a good one.
You have to have a bass that sings and allows you to sing through.
A bass that's playable to do all the things. I remember one time there was a guy named Booker someone who played with Cannonball Adderley. He had this bass and his strings were that far off the thing. So I get on the bass.
Godzilla.
And I'm trying to play it. I was sitting in with Cannonball many years ago. And I was like 18. And my fingers could hardly go down. And the guy was making fun of me back then. But I remember I was at least smart enough to tell him. I said, yeah, but if my fingers hadn't went down, you would have seen that my notes were better than yours. It's all about the notes.
Yeah, right.
I was like 18 years old saying this guy was looking at me like, he's
thanks,
crazy.
kid. Yeah, right.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Who are you listening to now that is inspiring you?
Bass player?
Anything. Anything music-wise that's new.
You know, I actually get inspired by what other people are inspired by. There's no particular thing that I'm listening to and like going like that, or you know, because the problem is I hear so much music. You know, it's like there's so many things to listen to now. You gotta remember when me and this guy were in our 20s.
Yeah.
Most of those guys that were making records are still making records.
That's true.
So then you got all the other generations of people making records. It's so many records. It's so much product out there.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It's, you know, I won't say it's bad, but I won't say it's good either. I just say it's a whole different thing. You know, it's funny. I was giving a speech for some school, like a commencement speech. I think it was MI school here in LA. Graduating class, and I was putting a speech together, and I asked my daughter, just the way I was constructing the speech, I asked her, like, well, what is the most significant band to you, like back in our days? was Coltrane, Jimi Hendrix, this. You know, we had a handful, and she couldn't answer me. And then finally, she says, "God, I got an iPod with 30,000 tunes on there. How much?" I said, "What about Green Day?" She says, "Yeah, but there's 15 other bands." You know, so it's just so much. So I think those days are kind of over.
That makes sense.
Right. It's like the innovation days, to me, in a way, are gone, because all those masters, all the guys that, it almost doesn't matter what genre. I mean, whether it's Led Zeppelin or Coltrane, it doesn't matter. It's like the guys that created whatever it is. It seems like it's gone. You know?
Yeah, you're not going to see that anymore. I mean, unless someone really comes out and you know, there was an artist that I didn't listen to a lot of his records, but somebody that I really respected was when Michael Jackson was at his height. Prince came out.
Yeah.
And with Purple Rain and like did this.
Yeah.
And they were both black male pop singers.
Right.
And I always used to tell people, I think this is great. This Prince guy is great because he could come out when Michael was at his top and be completely different than Michael.
Completely different, and make a statement.
And be a mega star. That's something.
Because he was incredibly talented. There's no question. Prince is
we used to do, in the bass world, it was like that. Like when Brian came out, it was like a big deal, you know, and all these different guys. Now, the bass world there's so many bass players. And I personally like it because I wanted that to happen. I wanted like a lot of bass players. I mean, now, shit, there's probably thousands of bass albums out there.
Yeah.
When I go to Europe, I saw a guy in Hawaii that had a bass album. He had on a Hawaiian shirt and he was holding a pineapple. And he gave me the album, and it was a legitimate album, some Hawaiian company, and I listened to this thing. It was just awful.
Oh.
It was awful. But
pineapple jazz.
I think. That's okay. I think we're good to go.
Interrupting the interview.
Not at all.
Thank you for your time, and you got to get ready for your
thank you very much. Have a great show tonight,
All right,
Stanley.
we can do this
Good to see you, man.
forever. Yeah,
okay.
all right.